When my son was diagnosed with depression, he was in 6th grade, and I was that typical parent that didn't believe that there was anything really that seriously wrong with him. How could he be in 6th grade and have major depression? How could my little boy, who was just this wonderful boy growing up and so normal, all of a sudden have this disability almost where he wasn't happy? He would tell me things like, "Mom, I don't know how to tell you, but I just don't want to be here. I'd rather be asleep all day than have to face anything that comes when I wake up." And his 11th grade year, he wanted to die so bad that he drove his car into a telephone pole. I took family leave from my job and stayed home with him for 6 weeks and watched him 24 hours a day because I was so afraid that my baby boy was going to, in a moment of this depression overtaking him, was going to take his life and I wouldn't be able to stop him.
I got a call one morning from a counselor at the university there, and they said, this is hard to talk about, but your son is suicidal and he's threatening to jump off a bridge, so we think you should come down and get him. We convinced him it was probably a good idea for him to come home, and he did, and he was hospitalized for a couple of weeks. It was really hard to watch because this was the young person that I raised, that I loved with every fiber of my being, and to see him not value his own life was very hard.
My daughter was what most people would think of as an ideal student. She was never any discipline problems. She always got good grades, A and B student all the way through school. And she was just a very, very involved and active child. And she's 31 now. And about 10 years ago, things really got bad, which is not unusual with people who have mental illness, that it hits sometimes in college. She has trouble now just keeping up with the daily routine, just doing things like showering and doing her laundry. That's a pretty full day for her. She gets overwhelmed very easily. And I asked her the other day, why is it that that's so overwhelming for you now when it wasn't when you were in high school? And she said, I don't have my coping mechanism anymore. And so I said, well, what's your coping mechanism that you don't have? And she said, I don't cut anymore.
I've been suffering from depression for about 9 years now. It's ranged between mild and severe, depending on the day, sometimes the hour, but usually it just comes and goes as it pleases. College was pretty rough in the last 2 years with the depression. It was hard to, get up and go to class, but it was even harder to get myself to care enough about my education and my well-being to, get up off the couch and do my homework or study. And it was stuff that I loved learning. Like, I wanted to know this stuff and I wanted to do well in school, but it was just hard to get myself to do it.
So I grew up in what was like the stereotypical ideal home. 2 parents, suburbia, were active, got good grades, all that good stuff. Church going, so on the surface, everything looked wonderful. My story is I deal with symptoms of PTSD due to prolonged, pervasive child abuse. And part of the reason I want to share my story is this is something that I have with my students. Is one thing is they're not just bringing themselves their notebooks, they have pencils and stuff to classroom. Each and every one has their own personal stories, and a lot of them bring some pretty heavy baggage with them. We don't know what's going on inside. We do not know what's going on in the inside of people's homes.
I work with a lot of students that are having academic and home challenges, emotional challenges. They're very dear to my heart because I relate with them in a lot of ways. I am the daughter of a woman that was paranoid schizophrenic. She passed away a year and a half ago. When I see the kids today, I relate to them because of who I was as a child. I picture myself as them and what experience they had, and I know that these kids are living sometimes really tough lives, and it's not their fault.
If anyone would have known my oldest daughter in elementary, you would have thought she was always involved, smiling, happy. Middle school was good, actually. And then 8th grade came and just started noticing some changes in her personality, started noticing some changes in her temperament. And we just kind of tried to deal with them and tried to think, okay, is this just an 8th grade girl going through some hormone problems, or is there something bigger here? And we struggled in 8th grade. 8th grade was a struggle. And not long ago, she said the words, I don't know if I want to live this life anymore. And as a parent, that's the hardest thing that you could ever hear from your child. And so we knew that this is bigger than what my husband or I could do on our own, and so we sought help. And so now we're seeking help, and we do know now that she does have some anxiety issues, and she's dealing with some social anxieties. And it's helping, the counseling is helping.
I was trained to teach mental illness, how to deal with troublesome feelings, depression, anxiety, mood disorders. I was confident. College prepared me for that. And one night, my daughter came downstairs with the empty bottle of pills crying, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry. And it was that moment in time that I realized I didn't know anything about mental illness. It was just chaos, it was fear, it was panic. Took her to the closest hospital, called 911 on the way. I knew she had taken a significant amount of pills, so they pumped her stomach, gave her the charcoal, and did what they had to do, and that's when I really learned about mental illness. Frustrating path, doctor to doctor, medication to medication, knowing the medicine takes about 21 days to work, so you wait 21 days with your fingers crossed, praying every night that this is what's going to work, this is going to quote unquote fix it. It's been a long road, it's been several years. We're finally through our about 5th or 6th counselor, just kind of like the medication, you have to find what works best for you.
You know, I tell people all the time, if you go to a counselor and it just doesn't feel right, find somebody else. You know, the way that one person might handle a situation isn't going to necessarily be helpful to you. One of the most important things for people to remember is you can't pour from an empty cup. I think it's really important for people to take care of their own mental health, to make sure that they're able to take care of those around them and everything else that needs to get done. It's the same philosophy as when you're on an airplane and you fly, and they always tell you, put your oxygen mask on first before you help anybody else. I think taking care of your mental well-being is the same idea.
I'm really glad that we at Lake are starting to really recognize the pervasiveness of mental health issues and starting to bring them out to the open to reduce that stigma.
Mental illness is hard to see.
If you know someone that's going through that, or a family member, that it's something that is very challenging.
And some of these kids, they come to school to have a hug or a smile because their parents may not be able to give that to them.
We're all in this together. You're not alone.
And try to understand that everybody has situations in their life we don't understand.
Every single one of them matter, and every single one of them have a story.